It was sonically cohesive, sonically cohesive,
Sonically cohesive.
Sonically cohesive.
sonically cohesive,
Sonically cohesive.
sonically cohesive,
Sonically cohesive.
That was the album that I felt was simple to the point and was it was like a really accurate snapshot of my life at that time. Like, it was just exactly what I was going through, and it was said very simply. It was sonically cohesive, and that's my favorite thing looking back on that album. There are two albums that I kind of think are like a little bit patchwork quilty sonically, and Speak Now was when we started getting into that. We were like, go string section, whoa, like, but then we'd have banjo on the next track, and you're like, what's going on? It was universally agreed on that the songwriting was great, but it was also noted that it was a little bit multiple personality, which it was. Maybe they're right. Maybe I did not make the record of my career. Maybe I need to fix the problem, which was that I have not been making sonically cohesive albums. I need to really think about whether I'm listening to a scared record label and what that's doing to the art I'm making. Max and I were going to oversee it, and we were going to make a sonically cohesive record again. We were going to approach it the way I approached Fearless. And so that's how we got to the record the way that it was.
I definitely did have a goal for this album, and that was for it to be sonically cohesive, which for me meant that it had a distinct sound to it. I want for my fans to hear a song from this record and know that it doesn't belong on any other one of my albums.
A big goal of mine was to make this album very sonically cohesive. So if I were to put a fiddle on a version of Shake It Off and service it to country radio, that would have completely shattered the entire idea I had that this album was going to have its own sound. In the end, we made a really sonically cohesive album, and one that I'm really stoked for you to hear. This is a much smaller group of people who I worked with on 1989. And I did that because I wanted this album to be more sonically cohesive than Red was.
I wanted this album to be really sonically cohesive, and even cohesive within the songs, and matching up the emotions with the sound of the music.
One thing that I've been doing throughout my career is I've always implemented different kinds of sensibilities from different genres in my music, and that's been something I've been proud of, but I have never put together an album quite as sonically cohesive as this.
As Red was the reason why 1989 happened. I love Jackson Pollock, and I really do see this album as like my splatter paint album. Just like using all the colors and throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I really think that when the album came out, it had a lot of people that were criticizing it for its, the fans make fun of me for saying this so much over the course of a couple years, but its lack of being, sonically cohesive. It was absolutely not cohesive, but it was sort of a metaphor for how messy a real breakup is, because I look back on this as like, this is my only true breakup album. Every other album has flickers of different things, but this was an album that I wrote specifically about like a pure, absolute, to the core heartbreak. And you do a lot of vacillating and changing when you're going through something like that. So this record actually is an accurate depiction symbolically.
Subscribe to this channel.